Guess who found her tiny booklight again? It's time to ask. For the train to not go by at this moment. What is today's writing mood? Purple, apparently. You can't tell because I chose a very well-lit corner of the room. Book. Okay, that's not what I got before. That's not encouraging. Hello, potential friends, and welcome back to the Vlogging Nook with me, Alexandra. I have returned for another one of the series where I talk about my master's degree in creative writing. I am currently working on a thesis where I write a YA book, and today I thought I would talk about my crazy decision to rewrite 95,000 words of third person into first person for the second draft of this book. So before we talk about perspective, what do I mean by perspective? What is perspective? Well, let me tell you a little story first. So the other day I was sitting in a coffee shop. I was writing. I was minding my own business. I was having a good time. I was feeling my look that day, which was woman from the 70s getting ready for brunch who got like teleported to the future before she had time to put on her makeup and found a fake vinyl leather jacket along the way. It's good luck. And I happened to look over my shoulder in the direction of the window, and I made direct eye contact with the lens of a camera because there was a man standing outside who was taking a photo of me. I was so surprised by this that I just literally like stared at him. I was just like, for like a solid 5 seconds before I just looked away. I didn't make any sort of facial expression. I was just like, oh, someone's taking a photo of me. Oh my god, look away. And I assumed, if I was a hipster photographer man who was like, oh, I see a person who's like maybe fashionable, or maybe I'm just a stalker, I don't know, sitting inside this coffee shop, the lighting is good, this is a beautifully framed photo, I would like to capture a human subject unaware of the camera. If I was trying to work that angle and I whip out my camera to take a picture and the bitch catches me, I think I would come inside the coffee shop and be like, sorry, I'm just a photography student, not like a pervert. Or like ask permission. But no, I look away really quick and then I like glance back to be like, what the heck is going on? And he just walks away down the road. He and his friend just skedaddled. And I was shocked, surprised, tiny bit flattered, but mostly weirded out. So that little fun story about my day, that is actually an example of first-person perspective. Surprise, it was a lesson outlined. First person, what is perspective? Perspective is the lens through which you see the story. Much like the lens that dude pointed at me through a coffee shop window. So the lens through which I told, like, that little anecdote was first person, which is where you talk with an I perspective. And it's limited to that I, to that person. The book that I'm writing for my thesis was originally all written in third-person perspective, specifically third-person fixed. So if I told that story that I just told in third person, it would be more along the lines of Alexandra was sitting at a coffee shop when she looked behind her shoulder and she noticed that there was a camera pointing at her. She was shocked, horrified, surprised. She felt all these different emotions. You can also do third person like omniscient. You can do third person where you jump into like other perspectives, so it can be Alexandra noticed a camera pointing at her. She was shocked, surprised. The man holding the camera outside was also shocked and surprised. He turned to his friend. He said, Johnny, we gotta go. God, Johnny, we gotta leave. I'm so embarrassed. So we get both of those points of view. We get the girl in the coffee shop, and we also get not Johnny. Johnny was the friend. I'm getting my story mixed up already. I'm not an improv person, writer. There's a lot of ways to tell a story, essentially, and how the reader accesses the character and the structure and stuff really affects the actual book. So my original draft of this novel that I'm writing for my thesis was all in third person. So my main character, Dell, it was from her perspective. It was fixed third person, so we never jumped into any of the other characters' heads. Whenever we're seeing from her perspective, we still have her name there, and we have, like, she and stuff. So even in a moment where we're just right in our head, it's Dell was feeling this way, Dell felt shocked and horrible. Dell started to cry, you know. So why did I decide to change perspective? I had this whole third-person draft. It was the whole book. It was done. It was in the third person. And I was having a lot of trouble editing it. I was having trouble, like, accessing the story again. You know, I'd go in and I'd edit bits and it wouldn't feel the way I wanted it to feel. I felt distant from the story. I was doing a fiction seminar last semester, and we brought in different pieces of writing each week to read, so I brought in sections of the novel, but I also, one week, brought in a short story I was working on. The short story was in first person, and my professor, after I read this out loud to the class, she looked at me and she said, "This voice that you're writing in this story is much stronger than what you've brought to class with your other work." I was like, great, because the other work is my thesis and this short story doesn't matter, so wonderful news. But I actually went up to her at the end of the class, and I asked her if she thought I should try, just as like an experiment, to rewrite the first chapter of my novel in the first person, just to see how it feels. She was actually pretty skeptical, because she knew how long my book was, and she was like, "Are you sure you want to do that? You know, if you like it, you know, that would be a lot of work to change the entire book, because you have to go through line by line. It's not as simple as just control F-ing find and replace every single time you see her name, because you still have to make sure that every sentence makes sense." And I said, you know, hearing that my first person perspective was stronger and a more clear, articulate voice was the first time that I felt like I'd gotten really positive feedback in the class, and I wanted to, like, follow that feeling. So I rewrote the first chapter and I brought it to class again. And this is the importance of having, like, a writing group, having peers that you, like, talk to about your work. Because without that feedback, you know, I might still be, like, stuck in the third person, like, struggling through. But I brought it to class, and I read it, and I was like, y'all have heard this before, but it's different now. I've rewritten it in the first person. I've changed up some other things while I've done that. And everyone was like, yeah, this is a lot better. They were like, it wasn't bad before. It's just that this is, like, you're in the character immediately, and it's much clearer. And I was like, okay, it's going to be a lot of work, but I can't not do something that will make the book better just because it's going to take a long time. So I finally handed in the whole thing in first person to my thesis advisor last week, and she's been looking at it, and she's going to get back to me with, like, comments and stuff on it. So I finally finished that process. I still have a lot of work to do, because the book is kind of much too long. And since I've just gone through this process, I just wanted to quickly talk about the advantages of third person versus first person and the vice versa. Third person is more helpful if you want more of like an eagle-eye view of a situation. It can provide a sort of distance between the reader and the character and allow them to like see a bigger picture. It can allow you to structure a story in more interesting ways, particularly if you're using third person and you're jumping between the perspectives of different characters. With third person, we don't have to be limited to how one person views the world. First person can be richer if you want the reader to be immersed in a character. Like, it allows you to write a stronger character voice, and you get right into the character's head, so sections like internal monologues come through more clearly, and they don't feel as awkward. It can feel like a character is like speaking directly to a reader, which can draw them in. And the reader can get like a better emotional attachment to the character, because they have direct access to their thoughts. Train wine. I also realized that first person is particularly good for YA, actually, because you're writing from the perspective of teenagers with all those, like, intense teenage emotions. And if you are a teenager now, or if you remember being a teenager, then it's a time when you're very, like, your own head is, like, spinning constantly, and everything is, like, about you in a way. You know, you're a little selfish. And that's like a very strong, rich character perspective to be coming from. And your readers are teenagers and like middle school kids, and they're generally going to care more about character than like sitting back and being like, well, the structure of the book was so interesting. Anyhow, I just wanted to update y'all that I'm doing pretty okay on the thesis, and talk a little bit about the journey of changing perspectives It's scary if you're thinking of doing it for like a big piece of writing that you've worked on. It can be scary undertaking that process because it is a lot of work. But if you find yourself much more energized by envisioning a story in a different perspective than you originally envisioned it, and that helps you get through a writer's block that you might have, then go for it. It worked for me. Well, we'll see if it worked for me. Maybe my thesis advisor will hate the book. I'm gonna go for now, though. I think that's all I wanted to talk to you guys about. My parting message would be, if you see someone sitting and you want to take a photo of them for whatever reason, ask, maybe. Maybe. Okay, I will see you guys next time. Bye!